Thank you. We're trying to get Councillor Steck on the phone, but you've probably just worked out that we haven't been successful. I have no announcements. Attendance. We have apologies from Councillor Yip, and the Mayor is on leave until next week.
I think you should ask Council for Councillor Steck to participate now, after Councillor Andrew.
Okay.
And you didn't finish reading out where he is.
All right.
So just go back and just do Councillor
Yes.
Andrew.
Councillors, Councillor Andrews is currently at the, where's he, at the Tom Price Caravan Park, is that correct? And do we have a street address for that or not?
Nameless Valley Drive.
Right. Thank you. He's at Nameless Valley Drive, that's appropriate, isn't it? Tom Price. And we will try and endeavour to get Councillor Steck. So councillors, will you please vote to approve those two councillors coming in online, please? Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Councillors, are there any declarations of interest? Haven't received any. Public question time.
Sorry, you've missed apologies.
Yes, I had the apologies. I think I mentioned that Councillor Yip and the Mayor is on approved leave of absence until next week. Thank you. Public question time. We have a delegation for a later item. There's no responses to public questions taken on notice. Councillors, minutes of the previous meeting. Thank you. Someone prepared to move the minutes, councillors? Councillor Quain, seconded Councillor Kosasek. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. We have you answered in favour, Councillor Andrew?
Yes.
Thank you. We also have minutes of the Council Advisory Committee. And someone prepared to move that, please? Councillor Kosasek, Councillor Quain. All those in favour? Councillor Andrew?
Yes.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Presentations, deputations and delegations. We have a presentation from Mr Brian Rettinger at 10.4.1. Mr Rettinger, when that item comes up, I'll call you up. Can someone move that Mr Rettinger be accepted to speak, please? Councillor Quain, seconded. Councillor Plum. All those in favour? Councillor Andrew?
Yes.
It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We have no petitions. I understand we have no council delegates report, Mr CEO. No conference delegates reports? No, thank you. Method of dealing with agenda business. Councillors coming out for discussion because they require an absolute majority are 10.1.1, 10.1.6, 10.1.7, 10.3.4 and 10.4.1. Is there any other councillors? Councillor McCleary?
10.2, please.
10.2.2. Thank you. Any further councillors? If not, is someone prepared to move the other remaining items on block, please? Councillor Plum, seconded Councillor McCleary. All those in favour? Councillor Andrews?
Yes.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So we begin with 10.1.1. Councillors, is someone prepared to move this item, please? Councillor Giles, seconded. Councillor McCleary, thank you. Councillor Giles. Nothing to say. Councillor McCleary. Anyone wish to speak against this item? No? I'll put that. All those in favour? Thank you. Councillor Andrews?
Yes.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.1.6, review of council policy, purchasing and delegations. Is someone prepared to move, please? Councillor McCleary moved. Councillor seconded. Councillor Kosasek. Thank you. Councillor McCleary, you wish to speak? Thank you. Councillor Kosasek. Thank you. Does anyone speak against this motion? Councillor Gasseb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just excuse me. I really didn't want to speak against this motion because I'm really one of the main proponents. However, there's just a couple of probably minor things I wouldn't mind raising. Perhaps we can try to sort it out here. But I want to just also pay gratitude to the Policy Review Committee who gave me the opportunity to make a pretty substantial presentation. I did read the report in detail and came in with about 20 questions, 40 points. We did run out of time. We spent a fair bit of time going through the answers that were provided, and I'm very grateful. There were some items that we just didn't make it, and in accordance with the answers, we were supposed to sit down at the PRDC and probably talk about it a little bit more. That was really deferred to this meeting. Unfortunately, I wasn't here last week for illness. So I'll just make the point, the 2 points very quickly. One is there's a recommendation to increase delegated authority to $400,000 from $250,000. Now, if I'm confident that the policy, the buy local policy of the purchasing policy is to my satisfaction, I probably would support that resolution or that part of the recommendation. I'm not completely satisfied because I don't think the process has been completed from my point of view anyway. So I'm not sure how you want to take it from here. I'll just give one example. The staff did take the effort to write a new buy local policy in the purchasing procurement policy. I'm actually very grateful about that. I'm feeling that like we've achieved something. And the intent of that was to raise the local content. If we can make that that information available to the public, to increase the local content discount, I suppose you call it, from 5% to 10%. So the price preference, which is a fantastic move, it really is. The little bit I'm not happy about is the existing buy local policy has one clause that's actually included in the current policy, but it's been taken out of the new policy. Whether it's an error, I don't know, but I'd really like to see it re-included if I get support. Otherwise, I'll either foreshadow a motion to go back to the review committee, or actually I'll have to vote against it. So the point that was taken out is avoid bias in the design and specification for requests, for quotations and tenders. All requests must be structured to encourage local businesses to bid. That's been taken out completely from the new policy, which is on page 216, the last paragraph on page 216. Everything else has been included, and I have gone through it with a fine-tooth comb. So I'm not sure how you want to manage that, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move a motion to include it or defer it.
Thank you,
But
Councillor.
I have put a lot of effort into this, and I know the staff have as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Just a moment, thanks, Councillor McCleary. Just a moment, please. Yeah. So I have to take these separately.
Okay.
Yeah, so the only items that require a majority. Total.
Councillor McCleary, we're just sorting out a question of procedure here. Councillor Gassett.
Could I move an amendment? Excuse me, I'm not feeling that well still. Can I please move an amendment, Madam Chair?
Yes.
And that is that the following clause, or point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Have you?
I can read it out and I can pass it to the minute taker if you like.
Have you written them down, Councillor?
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah. Okay.
Shall I pass it on?
Yes.
Would you like me to read it?
Just a moment, I'll just settle the procedure here, Mr CEO. Do we need to have the motion put first before the amendment comes in, or?
So you already had a mover and a seconder,
Yeah.
and then councillor Gassett is now proposing an amendment. So he can propose his amendment, and the amendment is either accepted or not accepted. If it's accepted, then it becomes the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Then it becomes the motion that people are voting on. So perhaps,
Councillor McClero, I will come to you in a second. Would you wish?
Once it's written up, I would like to ask a question through you to the CEO to explain the impact and the consequences of having that amendment.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Gassett, would you like to put your amendments, please?
Sure, just see if I can find you that. It's on page 192, so I'll pass it on to...
Please. And perhaps you can read them out, Councillor Gassett, so the other councillors know what they are.
So, Madam Chair, the point I'd like to have included that seems to have gone missing is avoid bias in the design and specifications for requests for quotation and tenders. All requests must be structured and encourage local businesses to bid. That's the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth point there, that one. That's actually missing from the actual recommendation.
Okay, so they're your dot points, are your amendments, are they?
Yes, please.
Okay. So
Just that point should be included.
Okay.
Everything else is included.
Councillors, anyone prepared to second that amendment? Councillor Quain, do you wish to second? You are seconding? You are seconding?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
if I can,
Yes,
just for clarification, if I can, the point you're suggesting is avoid bias in the design and specifications for requests for quotation and tenders?
Yes, it's in the current policy, but it's not in the new policy, recommended policy.
Are you also requesting
It is in the
the
current.
second one as well?
Yeah, perhaps, thank you,
Yeah,
Ms.
thank you.
French.
Just to confirm, you would like this particular clause here to go into the new local
Yes,
supply
yes.
It used to be in the,
So, councillors, we're just getting clarification on those, thank you. She-
which is happy to speak to.
through you, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
can I request that our senior officer in this regard provide some understanding about why the wording was changed, please?
Yes.
So Lisa, would you mind coming to the microphone or using a microphone and explain? And I'll bring Councillor Steck.
Thank you.
Okay, so when we amended, when we created the new policy, the intention was to...
Excuse me, could the microphone be lifted a little?
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
The intention was to reflect those key clauses in the original purchasing policy, but because we were also trying to streamline and to bring across what was absolutely crucial, and we elected not to bring across that bullet point. And I think the thinking was, or my thinking was that a specification officers would never act with bias, and the policy itself would prevent them from doing so because it puts local suppliers in a prominent position when we're procuring in any event. And so I guess my thinking was that that particular bullet point wasn't absolutely necessary, and it probably is worded in a way that I wouldn't recommend, in that the specification will always be the specification, and it will never be crafted and can never be crafted by officers in a way that would prejudice or bias anyone. It is simply drafted in a way that's best value or the best option for the city. And so it's more of a technical decision, the way a specification is drafted. And I understand the fear and the concern, and I understand what councillors want to achieve, and I think that the policy achieves that in any event. And I would caution against putting in such a specific wording, but of course that's up to you, and that's why that particular bullet point didn't come across. Did that help?
Thank you very much. Councillor, is anyone prepared to speak to the amendment, please? Secretary, you wish to speak to the amendment, Councillor Quain?
I support Councillor Gassett's inclusion of this amendment because I also am very concerned, or not concerned, but support advocacy for buying local and ensuring that every opportunity is met through the policy that supports the opportunity for local inclusion in buying local, and also supplying any opportunity for procurements and tenders and things like that. So I support council. I encourage council to please support this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Quain. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As part of the Policy Review Committee, and I know we did have lengthy discussions at that committee, I think in the other part of it's a shame we haven't actually got it on the screen, the changes, but the other part of this policy did strengthen the buy local policy. It did actually very clearly set out what the actions were to encourage local tenders. And I think I agree with the wording that, not having the wording, it said avoid bias in the design and specifications. Well, it's not in the design and specifications we want the bias, because that's a given. Like we can't say we only want it one story when we really want it two. It's in the actual looking at the tenders that we can support the local businesses by giving them a 10% leeway and all of those other sorts of things, and giving them some preferential treatment in that way. But we can't give them preferential treatment over the specifications, because that might mean not such a good building or not such a good playground or whatever, simply because we say, oh, that the local business can't supply that, so we won't put that in the specifications. That's not really what we want. We want the specifications as we want them, and then after we've set that out, we can then look at who is the best to do that, and if it's a local business, we'll certainly be trying to do that. But I understand the purpose of this amendment, but I think I agree that that particular wording is not probably the best in a policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. Councillor Andrews and Councillor Steck, we're currently debating Councillor Gasseb's amendment to the item. Does anyone else wish to speak for Councillor Gasseb's amendment? If not, councillors, all those prepared to support the amendment, please vote now. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that correct, Mr. CEO? And online, could you tell me how you're voting on the amendment, please? Councillor Andrews,
Yes.
for the amendment, Councillor Andrew?
Yes.
Yes, councillor Steck? Councillor Steck, you for or against?
No, I'm for Councillor Gavin's
Amendment.
amendment.
Thank you. Well, that's carried. So that now becomes part of the recommendation. So we're back to the mover and the seconder of the motion. Councillor Keary, do you... So is anyone...
Yes.
Yes, I'm just not voting on it just yet, Councillor Steck, thank you. Is anyone prepared to speak against the motion, please? No? Councillors, are you all ready to vote? I have to point out that it's required an absolute majority for points 1 to 3, so simple majority for 1 to 3. The remainder require an absolute majority, so I'll put 1 to 3. All those in favour, please. Councillor Andrew, Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Yes, that's carried unanimously, thank you. Points 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Councillors, all those in favour? Councillor Steck, Councillor Andrew?
Yes.
Councillor Steck? Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Yes, that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We now move to 10.1.7. Statutory Annual Review of Delegations 2021-22. Someone prepared to move, please. Councillor Kosicek, thank you. Seconder, Councillor McCleary. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Kosicek? No. Councillor McCleary? Anyone wish to speak against this item? Councillor Andrew, Councillor Steck?
Yes.
You wish to speak against?
Sorry, no.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, you're prepared to vote on this? All those in favour of 10.1.7? Councillor Andrews, Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We're now up to 10.2.2. Someone prepared to move investment and trade mission to India. Successful EOI. Someone prepared to move this item, please. Councillor Plum, seconded Councillor Turner. Would you like to speak in favour? Councillor Turner?
I just think this is a wonderful opportunity for our Mayor to be able to travel over there and also be a part of building closer relationships with the ministers and the Trade Commissioner of India. So I request that you all vote in favour of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Steele, you had a question.
Thank you. How much is our budget for elected member training?
CEO?
I don't have that information on hand. I don't think it's in the report. Let's double check that.
And a question onto that then is, does that carry over each year, or if it's not spent, it's gone?
It's a new figure each year. There's not normally a carry forward of any surplus in that area.
When was the last time we actually, I heard from Councillor McCleary that was $60,000 per year. When was the last time councillors actually used this money, and have we ever spent the whole amount?
Again, I'd need to, through you, Madam Chair, I'd need to take that on notice. My understanding is that post-election, with the extra training that was done, there were more funds spent this year than have been in the last few years, but I don't have that information at hand at the moment.
Is that because of the compulsory training, not that we have to do?
Through you, Madam Chair, we did the AICD, which was not compulsory training, but it was seen to be a value add for the elected members who are coming on the council and for those already sat.
Thank you. Councillor, someone wish to speak against this motion?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My objection is not about finance, and it's not about to undermine the investment and trade mission that's going to be in India. I'm sure it's going to be amazing and wonderful. We have our state delegates going at this time. This is the first time. What is a worry to me is the timing of it. We have our leader who's not here when we're doing the budget. And this is a really important time. We have new councillors, even councillors such as myself, experience. I like to have the Mayor to be able to discuss our budget, to be able to listen, to have that leadership going on, and we don't have that here. And if he goes away again, he won't be here. He'll be back just 2 days or a day before we get to and make the decisions. And we have made our a rate yield position at 5%. We're now doing cuts to be able to fit, as our CEO said, cutting the cloth to fit our budget now. And I think it's most appropriate if we have our Mayor with us whilst we're doing that. And I believe that when you look at the people whom are going to be there, they are all local. And for instance, Honourable Roger Cook, Deputy Premier, well, the Premier's not going, okay? You've got the Minister for Culture, all those people there, and our Mayor can catch up with them. And at a later date, it's all about timing. At a later date, he can go on the next trip. And at the moment, we do have a sistership with China. We've got our friendship with Vietnam. And they're the ones that we should be cultivating. And Japan, of course, our sistership with Japan, and working with our trade that we already have with them at this point in time. And a little later, when India becomes more, when there's a little bit more formed, WA is going to be, and the Southwest is going to be promoted, of course, through the Deputy Premier, and then we can step in there. So I know it's a bit odd for me, for a councillor to object to anyone going anywhere to learn something that might be of benefit to Bunbury, but right now what will benefit Bunbury is a very good budget, and we need our leader here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew, Councillor Stick and Councillors, anyone to speak for this motion?
Yes, I'll speak for it.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very happy to support this agenda item. I think having the Mayor of the City of Bunbury, the second capital city of Western Australia, travelling alongside the Deputy Premier, the Minister for Culture and the Arts, Sports and Recreation, who we're seeking additional funding for such investments as the Hands Oval Precinct, Hay Park redevelopment, etc., provides us with a fantastic opportunity to promote Bunbury, and hopefully through those relationships that the Mayor will be able to build will increase our ability to seek further funding. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. Is anyone else speaking against this motion? Councillor Steele.
I've now changed my mind due to Councillor McCleary's speech tonight. I was actually going to vote for this, but I actually agree with everything that she has said tonight, that I do think the Mayor does need to be here during our budget time. We are going through cuts with a big razor blade, and I will be asking some questions at the end of this council meeting regarding it too. So yeah, I have changed my mind. I was going to support this, but I actually will be voting against this tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Anyone speak for this motion? Well, councillors, I intend to make a couple of comments myself, and I'll start by and support this motion. I think it's a great honour for the Mayor to be invited on this trip. I don't think any other Mayor has been invited, and the links that he's going to develop with the Deputy Premier and other ministers on this trip are going to be invaluable for Bunbury, and for that reason I will be supporting this motion. Thank you. Is anyone else speaking against this motion? Councillors, if not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Yeah, sorry, would you like to close, please, Councillor McCleary? I beg your pardon.
All that has been said is quite correct.
Yeah, Councillor Turner. Councillor Plum.
Councillor Plum should be closing.
Oh.
Councillor Plum moved and...
Yes. Yeah, of course, sorry, Councillor Plum, I beg your pardon. Please forgive me, please. would you like to close the debate? Sorry? You close.
May I ask? Thank you. May I ask my question?
Just before you conclude the debate, Councillor Plum. Yes, Councillor McCleary, thank you.
Sorry. I would like to know, why wouldn't it be possible for our mayor to have a meeting with these local politicians to discuss the items to do locally? We all spoke of our hands over, for instance. Why would he have to go to India to speak about that? Thank you.
I don't know that we can answer that question, Councillor McCleary. Just from experience, it's very handy to know these people personally, quite frankly. Okay, Councillor Plum, would you like to close the debate, please?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillors, I do agree with some of the comments that have been raised tonight around finances, and certainly I think it's good that we're all here whenever important discussions are being had, but the wonderful advent of technology means I'm sure the Mayor is in touch regularly and staying on top of the progress as we collaborate through the budget challenges, but suffice to say it's been going very well. I think that there would be a very detrimental message to this investment group if we express interest and then decline the invitation, I guess, to go. That's probably not a message we want to send for investors that want to or explore options in Australia, let alone in our region. So I think when there's always a seed or an avenue or a prospect of potentially significant investment in whatever way it turns out, $5,000 to send our mayor on that trip, I think is money well spent. I do believe it's on the tail end of the recess as well, councillors, so I think the mayor would only miss one or two meetings. So on that basis, I'll leave it there and hopefully we can support this motion. Thanks, councillors.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew, Councillor Steck, we've just closed the debate, so I'm now going to ask councillors to vote on this motion. Thank you. Councillors, be prepared to vote. All in favour? In favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Councillor Andrew, Councillor Steck, how do you vote, please?
Yes.
Councillor Andrew.
I concur with you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Absolutely a privilege for our mayor to go and travel.
Thank you very much. Councillors, that's carried. Thank you very much. Yeah, Councillors McCleary and Councillor Steele voted against. I think it's automatic that that's recorded, though, I believe. Is that correct, Mr CEO? Yes, certainly. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. We're now up to 10.3.4, Bunbury and Districts Hockey Stadium Incorporated, request for self-supporting loan. Someone prepared to move this motion, please. Councillor Plum. Councillor Giles seconded. Would you like to speak in favour? I'm getting some pushback. Councillor Plum, would you like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Giles. Anyone prepared to speak against this motion? Thank you. Councillors, if not, could you please be prepared to vote? All those in favour? Councillor Andrews, Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, we now come to 10.4.1, review of visitor servicing, and we have a presentation by Mr. Brian Rettinger. Mr. Rettinger, would you like to come to the microphone? You've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, I'll preface this by saying I might need another 2, but I'll ask for more time if needed. I've given a copy of my notes to the meeting reporter.
Yes, we have got those. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll hit the high points here in the interest of time. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at the ordinary council meeting about visitation to Bunbury and Bunbury. The first point I want to make is I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure why the former location of the visitor center, the old train station, was ruled out. However, I imagine that the city has good reasons for that. I hope it's more than just safety and security concerns. But anyway, moving on, I am speaking for and in support of the officer's recommendation for the Bunbury Visitor Center to be relocated to the kiosk at Cabana Bay. But I have several comments related to that. Firstly, while I support it, it's a good location with respect to access. Actually measured the distance from the Lord Forest Hotel over to the new visitor center location that would be 1.3 kilometers. I consider that still within walking distance, not for everybody, but for the vast majority of people. And while it's not located in the central CBD, it has all the basic criteria that a new visitor center would need. It has accessibility, high visibility, it's in a popular location, plenty of free parking around, even caravan parking exists over there, and it's got a lot of other features going for it in a popular location. I understand that the city's report, or the Kristen Anderson and her staff's report, is pitched at a fairly high level. It is not a detailed plan, so some of my comments to follow are related to questions I have. And since it's not a detailed review, one of the initial concerns I have is whether or not the existing kiosk facility could possibly house a modernized BBC to handle the number of visitors that we expected to get in the future, and also a kiosk or a cafe. I paced off the area this morning, and inside that building is 230 square meters with about another 120 square meters under the veranda in front, where people have open air coffees and meals, etc. So, and I don't know what's required for the new BBC. That has to be further studied. That is not in the report. So, anyway, while I bless the location and will support it, that's in concept until we determine how much area that the Bunbury Visitor Center is actually going to need. Also, I want to volunteer my ongoing role as a unpaid consultant or volunteer to help in the planning stage, the detailed planning stage for the new BBC. I have significant tourism experience, which I've mentioned in previous council meetings, and I have anecdotal evidence that there's probably going to be a much higher percentage of interstate and international visitors coming in than what has been mentioned in the report. Keep in mind that what's been mentioned in the report is based on past numbers, and we've just been through a 2.5-year COVID period, and that's had a significant effect on the number of visitors coming into the city, radically reduced from what they're likely to be in the future. Having said that, there are some additional comments. I did mention that the kiosk floor plan is probably not enough to cover two functions occurring in that same space, namely the BBC and either a cafe or a full-blown kiosk like exists there now. So city should be prepared to look at putting an addition on the building or creating a separate space for a permanently relocated BBC. Also, the city should prepare and implement a public safety and security plan that will not only cover the CBD areas, but also down the Cabana Bay foreshore, including the kiosk area where the Bunbury Visitor Center is going to be located. I brought that up at a previous council meeting. My understanding is that a safety and security plan is being looked at by the city right now. But I think it's extremely important that we get public access to that area, that it be a safe and secure space. Destination marketing and promotion should remain with Australia Southwest, the regional tourism organization, or maybe properly called Bunbury Geograph Tourism Partnership. It is not a major role for the visitor center. However, close coordination between the city staff, particularly the events group, the Bunbury Visitor Center, and Australia Southwest in the Bungeo region should continue to occur, so that destination marketing that's done by Australia Southwest is relied on by both input and coordination with the city staff and with the Bunbury Visitor Center. I'm recommending there be a new steering committee established with the Bunbury Visitor Center. I'm not going to go into detail.
Your 5 minutes is up. I'll now have to seek extra time if the council are prepared to do that.
2 minutes. Oh, really? Okay. I won't take that much time.
Okay, another couple of minutes.
2 minutes is fine, yeah. Okay, look, I think it's very important in this current tourism climate and with just coming out of COVID, and we will begin to see interstate and international passengers coming into the city and visiting us and attending our signature events, etc., that we should have a steering committee. It's not just to be a standalone BBC or working closely with Australia Southwest, there's organizations like the BGCCI. There's other stakeholders that are involved in the visitor center, including our members and also the community itself. So I strongly recommend a steering committee. Paid BBC membership should be renewed as soon as possible by the city. I simply do not understand why all of us members of the BBC are getting essentially a free ride. COVID is almost done and dusted. Why wouldn't you charge an interim membership fee? Well, when you do that, you can also go out and start the recruitment process for new members to the BBC. These are things that should be going on now. And why would the city foot the bill when we can have members contributing an interim fee, maybe half price, maybe $100 a year or something to be paid for the services that they're getting? Finally, next to last is the in-person visitors graph in the report on page 586 of the council agenda. I simply do not believe. It's got a massive downturn from 50, 60,000 visitors a year to 20,000 visitors a year. Not one word is mentioned that it's COVID and only getting intrastate visitors that's had the major impact on that graph. When you look at it from that perspective, and based on my anecdotal evidence, 30% of my tour business was with international and interstate passengers before COVID happened. We've got a lot of expansion in the number of visitors that will come here. And if we're going to fight the bore and taking all tourists away from Bunbury, the best way to do that is to be proactive about it and plan for a larger number of future visitors. So I recommend in the next 2 or 3 years, we should be planning for 60,000 visitors per annum and a good mix of intrastate, interstate, and international passengers. Finally, nothing has been mentioned in the report about a volunteer program. I've been very proactive with Kristen and others and councilors about that. I'd even be willing to help implement a volunteer program. Volunteers go a long way towards bragging about the city, its attractions, its events, and can be a massive help to the staff of the visitor center if they're assigned particular tasks. And there's got to be a lot of people around Bunbury that are very proud of our town, and they'd be more than happy to volunteer service to the visitor center to be seen and heard from to boost the city with the public. Finally, I like the report very much, and in most areas its recommendations are headed in the right direction, but more detailed planning is required. My motto for planning increased visitation and a modernized BBC is to think big, quote unquote, because if the city takes an inadequate approach to visitation to Bunbury, we will suffer big losses of potential tourism revenue to surrounding regions like Mandurah, Bustleton, and Margaret River, to name a few. So please don't make the same mistake as council as the city made some 20 or so years ago by letting visitors bypass Bunbury only to go to Bustleton, Margaret River, and now Mandurah has recently been named as a top tourist town. We shouldn't be giving that business away. We should be fighting hard to get it and expand it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Redinger. Councillors, is someone...
Madam Chair, can I please propose that I'm going to move a different motion?
You wish to move an amendment, Councillor Steck?
Yes, I'm foreshadowing a new motion that we use the BREC for the Tourism Brewery.
All right, thank you. Just a moment. Mr. CEO, you had some minor amendments of your own, I understand. Wait a moment, Mr. Councillor.
Yes, if I can, Madam Mayor, just via email to elected members last evening, I proposed a slight amendment, which are actually on the screens in front of you, which was that conversation around whether there was the best benefit would be within the kiosk or within a standalone facility adjacent or nearby. So I've just made those changes in red on your screens on number 2 and 3 as part of the executive recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. So they now become part of the executive recommendation?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Councillor Steck, I'll just get someone to move and second the motion before we put your amendment, please. Someone prepared to move 10.4.1, please. Councillor Plum, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Kozasek. Councillor Giles?
I would like to move to defer this motion because I think we need a bit more discussion amongst ourselves as the amendment that was foreshadowed and discussions we've had. I think we need to defer this for at least 2 rounds before we make a final decision.
Is that an amendment on an amendment?
May I ask a question, please?
Yes, councillor Cleary.
Sorry.
When there's a procedural motion, unfortunately, there's no questions allowed.
Okay,
Vote on the procedural motion.
so do you need on the procedural motion? Yeah, okay. Councillor Giles has moved that we, yeah. 2 rounds, we defer to 2 rounds. Seconded Councillor Steele. Okay, councillors, anyone wish to speak against that, please?
There's no debate.
No? Okay, no debate? All right.
Hang on.
Councillor Steele,
Sorry.
yeah.
I can't hear because the land is really
I've
So what are we moving?
We're moving a deferment of the item for 2 rounds.
Okay, I'll agree with that.
Okay, well, we're not debating apparently, so councillors, you do need to vote on this.
There's no debate.
No debate. I'm about to put that we defer this motion for 2 rounds. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. Councillor Andrews and Councillor Stick, how do you vote, please?
Totally agree.
Okay, Councillor Andrew?
Sorry, no.
No, okay. So can I have those 4 against, please, so I can count the numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Councillor Stick, so that's 6. Those against, please? 1, 2, 3, 4, and Councillor Andrew, that's 5. So that deferment is passed. So that item is now deferred. Thank you, councillors. Now move to applications of leave for leave. We have got a motion from Councillor Steck from the 18th to 20th July 2022. All those in favour, please? Move it. Thank you. Can you move, please? Seconded. Councillor Plum. I presume there'll be no one speaking against that, so we'll put that all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Councillor Andrew, Councillor Steck.
Yeah, I'm going to vote for myself.
Good, excellent. Councillor Andrew?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Application for leave Councillor Giles from the 19th to 28th of July 2022. Mover, please. Councillor Steele, seconded. Councillor McCleary. All those in favour? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Carried unanimously. Councillors' motions on notice, I have nil. Questions from members, I have nil. Councillor Steele, yes.
It's actually going to be on spending money on improving so our councillors can, as we're trying to take it out of our budget, about upgrading inside the council chambers and whether the money gets spent inside the council chambers or next door. My question is, if we spent the money in here upgrading our services for every Tuesday night so our people can watch in, would that also improve our councillors being able to hear what our debate's going on, and would that make it improving that we have more than 2 people being able to call in and improve the service that we're actually giving our elected members at the moment?
Mr. CEO.
Through you, Madam Chair, my understanding is that the upgrades to the function room, the upgrades to the chambers would have provided better capacity for dial-in, for voting, for audio, for viewing. But the budget was of $90,000 was in the budget, and we've issued a purchase order to upgrade the function room because that was the budget we had available, and council did not support the balance of the project being funded out of reserve at that time.
So for it to go into the 22-23 budget, how much do we need to upgrade this? It's substandard what's happened tonight, in my opinion. And I wasn't going to ask these questions until this happened.
Mr. CEO.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Steele. So from the tenders that were received, from my recollection, the council chambers was an additional $155,000 to upgrade the chamber component of the audio-visual. So, and, sorry, but that's the figure.
How,
Sorry,
I'm trying
Councillor
to-
Steele, could you mind coming through the chair, please?
Sorry,
Thank
the
you.
chair, I wasn't asking to see, I'm just through the chair, whoever wants to answer. I'm just asking the questions. Why is it more significant for the upgrades to happen within here than next door? Through the chair.
Thank you. Mr. CEO.
So why is it more significant?
I think you said it was only going to cost $90,000 for next door, the upgrades, and so $155,000 to just upgrade services within here. So, yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, I don't have the detail in front of me, but my recollection, and I'll probably have to get some of this information and provide it to you formally, and then into the next agenda. So the total figure that came in was $240,000, somewhere around that much, and that was broken down, and we were asked to consider the two elements separately. When we looked at that, we went back and tested that with the preferred tenderer, and based on the funding we had available, we proceeded with procurement for the function room. There must have been other technical elements in this room. I think it included new screens, new microphones. There was a lot more specific detail in this particular room, but I'll get that, drag that information out for you.
Thank you. And
for
through the
next
chair, then, if there is elements that could maybe be broken down that we don't have to have new screens, or just so, I just think it just doesn't look good if our councillors are wanting to call in and they can't hear, they can't really vote correctly and things like that. So if it could be broken down, that we could maybe afford to do some upgrades, it would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. I have no urgent business, and 15.1, there is no items meeting close to the public. Therefore, there's no public reading of resolutions. I now close the meeting at 18:22 p.m. Thank you, councillors, for your attendance.